Hi everybody, this is Ola Ipiwoye of Commercial Property Club. Once again, we're here to serve you with thought leadership in income producing property. As we always say, here in CPC Commercial Property Club, we bring vast knowledge when it comes to income producing property in terms of what's happening in the industry, what's happening with players in the industry, as well as also to service men and women, great men and women that have done great things in the commercial real estate sector. And today I have with me a wonderful person, a woman I met several years back in my knowledge garnering of syndication. Actually, I went to one of our classes, profound classes that changed everything for me when it comes to syndication. And she's a giant also too in the industry. She's a very knowledgeable attorney, a security attorney in specializing in transactional things with commercial real estate. Today, I have with me here today, I'm going to give a little bit of insight of who she is. Her name is Kim Lisa Taylor. Before I bring her on board, introduce her formally, I'd like to say one or two things about her. She's a nationally recognized corporate security attorney, also a speaker and author also too. She's authored a #1 selling Amazon best-selling book. The title is How to Legally Raise Private Money. You have to actually legally raise money when it comes to syndication. You have to stay within the confines of SEC rules. So what a caption, a good book, How to Legally Raise Private Money. She's a founder of Syndication Attorney, PLLC. And whose purpose is to provide quality legal advice, actually, legal advice in terms of plain English, offering documents. You and I know that, you know, the confines of the English of attorneys can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but she does it in a simple way, in a professionally designed material ways that clients have really been using it nationwide in the Americas. Kim has been responsible for quite a number of deals to the tune of about $3 billion in terms of security offerings for clients all around the U.S. She's raised private money for investors, and she's routinely speaking on income producing property in commercial real estate. And she's on live, she's on virtual event, what have you, so many events, I was just talking about her right now, being the last time we bumped into each other in an event. She's somebody that's out there, not only a professional by her own right, she's constantly learning in what I call, she's already an expert, she's still learning, I'm amazed about that. But, she's done a lot of conferences out there that ranges in the attendance of about 50 to 1,000 attendants. Talk about, being a professional. She's a professional. Without no further ado, no further delay, I would formally introduce my guest today here on Commercial Property Club. Her name is Kim Lisa Taylor. Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Ola. It's so nice to see you again.
Same here too. And it's so profound what you've done out there. And I personally, I know what it means to be in the syndication business as a syndicator to myself in income producing property, niche asset apartment. I know you have to do things within the confines of SEC rules, within the confines of the legal terms. But before we go into that question, I'd like you to just, say one or two things. So if you want to add to the introduction I gave my audience, or we'll just dial in, we'll slice it bit by bit as we move on.
Sure. Well, so I got into this industry in 2008 as an attorney, but I got here the same way that a lot of your audience has gotten here, is seeking knowledge on how to syndicate real estate, how to legally raise money so I could buy commercial real estate. My husband and I went to an event, and I was a fairly new attorney at the time, but he had been a real estate investor for a long time. We were looking to buy multifamily, so we went to an event and learned, and then we came back to their private money event and learned from another attorney how to do this legally. And I introduced myself to that attorney at the time and said, well, I do some work for other attorneys. I'd be happy to work with you. And we struck up a relationship and started a law firm, worked for a long time together. And then that was in California, and then eventually moved to Florida. My husband and I did syndicate a 27-unit apartment complex. We had some friends in the deal. We owned it for 9 years. And so we did experience that. We now have some vacation rentals of our own. So we're very much in tune with the space. As you said, I went to a lot of training. I went to every kind of real estate training event that I could find when I was early in my career, just so I could learn what my clients were doing and what they were being told, and what kind of deals made sense. And so I went to self-storage events and multifamily, mobile home parks, regular commercial real estate. Spent a week at a single family fix and flip event, just learning all the different things that people could syndicate and invest in. And I think that's helped me relate better to my clients, because I understand what they're being taught and how they need to structure their deals, as well as what they need to do from a security standpoint to comply with securities laws.
Awesome. Thank you for that brief introduction into what you've done. Talk about a professional, not only by words also too, but by practice also too, because being a security attorney like you are, you don't only know in terms of the legal aspect of things, you're also engaging, practicing what you're helping people do. You're joining hands with other investors and practically living what you know and what you've preached out there.
Absolutely.
So tell me, I know raising money, it's sometimes some people call it the huge gorilla, the huge elephant. But if you want to eat an elephant, you start with the smallest aspect of it.
That's right. One bite at a time.
So tell me how to legally raise money for my first deal. For those who have been in live, they are newbies. There are people that are trying to get into syndication. Let them know, as a syndication attorney, what it means to raise money within the confines of the laws of the land.
So most of our clients have come to us from some type of a training program or a background where they've gotten some experience, or maybe teamed with some other people, or they have a coach that's teaching them how to buy the real estate. So we kind of take over after that. So somebody else will give them the education, or they'll get self-knowledge on how to actually acquire the type of real estate they want to buy, and how to generate a profit with that. And then where we come in is, now that they know what they're going to do, let's say they've selected multifamily, or they've selected industrial parks, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter, that once they decided this is my niche, then they'll come to us. They'll usually get something under contract. So they'll go out, they'll find a property, they'll get a purchase agreement on it, or at least get an accepted letter of intent. And then they'll approach us and say, okay, now I need to raise $1 million or $2 million in order to be able to buy this property. Usually they're going to be getting some kind of a bank loan on it. So that's going to cover 65 to 75% of the purchase price, but then they're going to have to fund that difference. So they've got to fund the down payment. There will be closing costs. When you're syndicating a property, you can collect an acquisition fee. There's going to be whatever capital improvement budget they need to raise in order to improve the property, make it perform better than it was before, which is going to help generate profits for their investors. And once they figured out what that dollar amount is, then they'll come to us and say, we've got this property under contract. It's a $4 million property and we need to raise $2.5 million. This is what we're going to do with the money. They'll need to figure out how that property, do some projections, how that property is going to perform over time. And then that will help us understand how they're going to be able to split that money with investors, making sure that there's enough cash on cash return that investors can participate in the deal. And then also they'll propose what their exit strategy is. How many years do they plan to own the property? What is the exit strategy? Are they going to sell it? Are they going to try to refinance it? And, are they going to try to 1031 exchange it? So there's multiple options for that as well. But having all those three financial pieces together, what are the sources of funds and the uses of funds for acquiring the property? What are our 5 to 7 year projections for how we think the property is going to perform? And what is our proposed exit strategy? That helps us figure out how to split money with the investors. So then they'll come to us and we'll explain to them what the structure is for a typical real estate syndicate. This would be called a specified offering, where they're raising money for one specific thing. So we would help them then figure out how to structure that company. There's usually going to be at least 2 LLCs. And then we would draft the operating agreements for those. We would help them understand where to form them. We would form the companies for them and get all that piece in order. So that's the corporate part. So I'm a corporate securities attorney. So we handle the structure. And then the second part is the securities compliance. So securities compliance involves understanding what the securities rules are that apply to your offering. So whenever you have passive investors in a deal that are relying on you to make a profit, then you're selling them securities in the form of investment contracts. So this investment contracts, when you know that you're selling somebody interest in your company, they're passively investing, they're relying on you to generate the profit, or you and your management team, then you're selling them these investment contracts. Now you have to comply with securities laws. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you either have to register the offering and get pre-approval from regulatory agencies, or you have to qualify for an exemption from registration. So all of our real estate clients are using the exemptions because you don't have time to get your company registered. It would take, many, many months and, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to take a company public. And then you've only got 90 days to close on a property. So you can come to us and we can help you select an appropriate exemption, help you understand the rules of that exemption, and then you are able to legally go out and solicit investors for that deal. So that's kind of how it works. And so each exemption has a very specific set of rules. We can talk about that a little bit more if you'd like. But
yes, absolutely. I was going to go to that actually. That I know there are various kinds of exceptions. The likes of your Reg Ds and that's sections. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so Regulation D has 2 options that most all of our clients are using. In fact, I was just, I'm updating my book right now, and I was just looking at some statistics. And in 2022, the amount of money raised in Regulation D offerings around the United States was more than double the amount of money raised by public companies. In the New York Stock Exchange. Yeah, it was a difference between $2.3 trillion raised in Rule 506 offerings, which is what most of our clients are using, versus $1.1 trillion raised in public markets. So you can see that and that all happened within the last decade, because 2015 was the first year that the private markets actually surpassed the public markets in terms of the amount of money that was raised. So it's become very, very substantial source of capital. And it's become very, very popular as a result. So under Regulation D, Rule 506, there's another rule called Rule 504, but nobody hardly ever uses it because it requires pre-approval by state regulators. Rule 506 is a federal rule that supersedes all other state laws. So as long as you follow the rules of Rule 506, you can raise money from investors in any state. You can buy property in any state. You can even buy property outside the U.S. but it pertains to the investors. So the investors, where the investors live is where the securities laws are that you have to look at and make sure that you're in compliance with. So in our case, we're looking at people who are raising money from U.S. investors, and the SEC calls them retail investors. These retail investors are your family, your friends, your acquaintances. They're just ordinary people like you and I, you know, not institutional investors, not banks. You know, you're raising money just from ordinary people. And so the SEC wants to protect them. So that's what these rules are designed for. So the primary rule that almost all of our clients, and according to the statistics I read today, the primary rule that almost everyone is using to raise the money is called Regulation D, Rule 506B, B like boy.
Okay.
Regulation D, Rule 506B like boy. So Regulation D, Rule 506B allows you to raise an unlimited amount of money from an unlimited number of accredited investors and up to 35 non-accredited but sophisticated investors. But you can't find them through any means of general advertising or solicitation. So you can't use the internet, you can't use social media, you can't use newspaper in order to sell these deals. So how to prove that you didn't do that is to be able to show that you had a pre-existing substantive relationship with every investor before you asked them to invest with you. And so what that means is that you have to actually have some conversation with those investors and talk to them about whether they're accredited, if they're not accredited, how might they be sophisticated. And sophistication is a term that's based on someone's financial background or educational experience or prior investing history that would make them sophisticated enough to understand your offering and make sure it's appropriate for them. Accredited is someone who has over $1 million net worth, excluding equity in their primary residence, or they have $200,000 a year income if they're single, $300,000 if they're married or cohabitating, so living in the same address. So that's what most of our clients are using. There are other definitions of accredited investors: an entity that has over $5 million in assets, or where all of its members are accredited investors. That would also qualify as an accredited investor. And then there's some other institutional type investors that can qualify, but those are the ones that our clients are most often using. The alternative to 506B, because it's hard, you have to go out and you have to develop relationships with people. You have to meet them first, and then you have to have conversations with them. You also have to have a record-keeping system to be able to demonstrate that you developed this relationship with them. You had a financial conversation with them to find out whether they were accredited or not accredited, if not, were they sophisticated, and that the offer that you might make to them would match their investment goals. So you've got to ask them some questions about what their investment goals are. When do they need the money? Are they comfortable being in a deal for 5 to 7 years? Are they, do they have other funds invested somewhere else? You don't want to take somebody's last money. You also don't want to take money from someone that they could not recover from if they lost it. You just need to make sure that they are suitable to be in your offering. Once you've had that conversation with them and you've documented what you learned during that call, then you can start making offers to them, but not until. So that relationship must predate your offer. So if you've got something under contract right now and you're just out now trying to meet people, it might be a little too late. You need to be meeting people and vetting them before you get deals under contract. That's the best practice. The alternative to that is Regulation D, Rule 506C, C like cat, and that allows you to freely advertise, but it restricts you to only raising money from people who are verified accredited investors. So they actually have to go through a verification process. They can either show you their financials or their income, or they can go to a third party and get a letter from an attorney, CPA, or financial advisor, maybe somebody in their world, or there's some companies out there that will provide that service. The problem with not advertising, with advertising, is that you're restricted now to only accredited investors, which is about 10% of the investment pool out there.
Yeah.
So now you've cut out 90% of the people that could invest with you. And also, when you're advertising for people, they're not going to invest with you unless they know you. So if you haven't
True.
taken the
True.
time to get to know them and to develop a relationship with them, your ads are going to fall on deaf ears. They don't know who you are. They're not going to invest with you. So you really have to develop the relationships in either case before you're going to be effective at raising money in either of those types of offerings.
Awesome. Awesome. And it's profound. You talked about relationships, and I've been around for a little bit, and I know that, it's all about relationship. In your travels, with your students and also all of the extension of your networks, when it comes to syndication, what does a syndicator need? What are the few things, the few strategic plans, the few things they have to put together to make sure they succeed in this business?
There's a lot they need to do. Number one, they have to have the right characteristics. And I actually heard this stated by someone at an event recently, and I thought it was very eloquent. And they said, you have to be trustworthy, competent, and likable. If you're not any of those things, or you're only a couple of those things, then you're going to need to bring other people onto your team that can help augment you, right? So, you really need to have, to raise money successfully, you need to have somebody that loves to talk. Yes, it's a sales job, right? It's a sales position.
Yeah.
Salespeople love to talk. They love to sell. They love to talk about whatever it is they're selling. And that's really what you need, is that kind of a personality. If you're not that personality and you're the kind that just likes to kind of hang out in the basement and crunch numbers, well, you'd be great on a team too, but not as the money raiser. You're going to be great as the deal analyzer, right? Yeah. And then you got to have somebody who's going to go out and develop relationships with real estate brokers in the markets where you're planning to look for these properties, or you're going to have some other strategy to find these properties, maybe sending out letters or bandit signs or whatever your method is to go out and look for and find these deals. So you really have to have, people on your team that can find deals, people that can vet the deals and conduct due diligence, make sure that they're good deals and that they're viable, and do some number crunching for you. And then you got to have people that are great at talking to investors and developing these relationships. If you have those people on your team will do really well. I do have kind of a rule of thumb, and that is no more than 5 on the team.
On the team, okay.
Yeah. More than 5 starts spreading the money too thin. People get disgruntled, dissatisfied. They're not making enough. They feel like they're doing too much. Some people do more than others. It just makes for a bad mix. So 5 seems to be the magic number.
Yeah. Yeah, I can attest to that. You keep the team small so that, as long, just make sure you bring on board people that have complementary skill sets. Just like you explain right now, those are complementary skill set that, when they come together, they're not overlapping each other. And you can also, at the end of the day, be able to share the profits at the end of the day. In your travels, having done a lot of transactional services for syndication over the years, in the tunes of billions of dollars. What separates the successful from the unsuccessful? What would you say that this is what I've seen?
The most successful people have really taken the time to develop a database of prospective investors. The ones who are the least successful are they're really focused on just finding the deals, and then they get a deal and they're like, I don't have any investors, or I don't have enough investors. So then they're scrambling around trying to bring other people into their management team that can bring their investors. And that is not really a scalable business model. You really, if you want to scale your business, you need to have somebody internally with you who's going to develop relationships and go out and be able to talk to those people when you have deals. We have some clients that started out 6 years ago buying $3 to $5 million deals, and now they're buying $30 to $50 million deals. And they took the time to develop those relationships. Initially, they used 506B offerings, and they got all their acquaintances and their family members and all of that invested with them. And once they ran through that list, then they had a good enough track record to be able to go out and start advertising. So now they have a database of about 300 accredited investors.
Investors, okay.
That will invest with them again and again and again in any deal they have. And I've seen these guys raise $10 million in a week. So, that's where you want to aspire to is, initially start out with a database of accredited and non-accredited investors, write down a list of everybody, start developing those relationships, start vetting them, make sure you've got this list of qualified people. So when you have deals, you can start tapping into them and talking to them about the deals you have and making sure that this one sounds like a good deal for them. One other thing is that, there are people out there that will teach people, hey, why don't you just do a fund? You can raise all the money in advance, or why don't you do a fund of funds so you can just raise money and invest in somebody else's deals. The fund model is the absolute hardest way to raise money. So don't even think about it until you have a very significant track record. You've done 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 deals, start to finish, specified offerings. People love to invest in a specific project. They get very nervous about handing over money when you don't have anything identified. And then the fund of funds model, where you're going to just raise money from your small group and try to isolate them into an LLC that you can invest in somebody else's deal. Well, that's problematic because it opens up other regulations, other securities regulations that you have to comply with. One of which is you're now acting as an investment advisor because you're investing your group on what securities to buy in somebody else's offering. And once you start advising someone on what securities to buy, you're acting as an investment advisor, and you actually have to file some paperwork to become an investment advisor. And you may have to take some tests in your state or in the states where your investors live in order to be able to provide that service. So it's kind of the wrong path, right? For a lot of people get into this. They want to buy properties. They want to syndicate. They, can only put together $300,000 or $400,000 because they haven't taken the time to develop relationships with investors, or they don't have somebody in their team that's out finding deals. So they end up with just a piece of what they need, and they have to, make themselves beholden to these other groups so that they can have a place to invest at all. It's really not a sustainable model. It's something you should maybe aspire to do 1 or 2 times just to gain some experience in someone's management team, and then go out and start doing your own deals.
Awesome. What an elaborate explanation about the kind of now Security Exchange Commission. That's acronym SEC.
Yes,
that's the regulatory body. That's the watchdog right there, isn't it? Am I right?
It's the main one. It is the main one, but you have to realize that every state has its own. So there are 50 mini SECs out there. And if someone is going to do a regulatory action against you, it's far more likely that it's going to be a state regulator than the SEC, because the SEC has such big fish they need to fry. They're looking for, the people who are, stealing millions and millions of dollars or, wasting it away, and they're trying to stop them, right? Whereas the state regulators, there's 50 of them. They have smaller budgets. If somebody makes a complaint, they've got a better budget to go out and start investigating that locally. And then the bad thing about that is that if, one state regulator starts looking at you, then they meet monthly, and they're going to share their information with the other states who are also going to start looking at you. So you could end up with enforcement actions against you from several states. Oh,
wow. So let's dig deep into SEC in terms of because I always love the fact that when syndicators that go out there, they do things within the confines of the law, and that's what actually propagates business. That's what takes business to the next level. And how not to get into trouble? What are the defensive mode of things that a syndicator needs to do to rather be defensive? You play defensive, you're likely not to get into trouble.
Absolutely. You know what? Think of this like learning to drive, right? In order to learn to drive, you have to learn how to operate the vehicle. You have to learn how to get from here to there, and you have to learn the rules of the road, right? So it's the same thing. You need to learn the laws that apply to what you're doing. And you don't have to learn securities laws in general. You just need to learn, this is the exemption I'm following. These are the rules I have to follow. Then you have to learn how to structure deals with investors and how to split money with investors. And then we will write all that down in an operating agreement for your company. And then you just have to follow it, right? So if it says you can take fees, then you can take fees. And when it says, here's when you determine there's going to be a distribution, here's how it's going to go. It's going to go in this order, and you're going to follow those words exactly. So, it's really just a matter of, hiring the right attorneys that can help you structure things correctly and give you the right documents that both you and your investors understand, that you can then follow and have the confidence that if you have questions, you don't know where to find something, you can call your attorneys and ask them, hey, can you help me figure this out?
Okay. Now, I usually do this. I say sometimes, things instead of going north, it goes south. And there are deals out there that would go south. Which one or two deals out there that you say, okay, that one, there was a lot of air about it, when it comes to your practice, that, okay, that's syndication. This is what they did wrong. This was what was wrong from the beginning or from the middle, the bad.
Two big things come to mind right now when you say that. Don't wait for investors, right? Until an investor's money is in your bank account, which means you have to have the offering documents we're going to draft for you done and in hand, then you can start collecting money. So until those investors' funds are in your bank account, you don't wait for them. You have to keep raising money and just let them know, hey, that would be great. We'd love to have you. Let us know when you have the money. We'll let you know if we still have a spot for you. Right? Because if you wait for everyone, then a lot of people won't come through. I had some clients that were waiting at the closing table for a $400,000 investor that didn't show up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they had spent a lot of time and effort and money getting that far. That was completely lost on that day. So don't do that. The other thing is, don't go out and look for single check writer investors. Almost all the time that I hear people say, I've got one investor who's going to do the whole deal, it doesn't happen. So what does happen is they're too polite to say no. So they'll say, well, if it did this or if it did that, or if you did this or that, then I might do it. And they'll kind of string you along, but all of a sudden it becomes too late to go find other people. And you've been putting all your eggs in one basket, and now you don't have anybody. And they end up saying, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to do the deal. Or, well, if you kept 5% of the deal and I got 95%, that would be fine. Or why don't I just pay you a finder's fee? So all of a sudden the deal either changes or something comes up, they can't do it, or they just stop answering the phone. So that's not the right answer. They won't invest. Those types of investors will not invest with you until you have a significant track record. And then they might be interested, but they're going to want to see some history. They're not going to try. But your friends and family and people that you've cultivated these relationships with you, they'll take a chance on you. These Rule 506B non-accredited investors are golden. Yeah. And so if you take the time to develop relationships with them, there's plenty of them out there that have $500,000. They don't have $1 million net worth, but they got $500,000. Well, that's certainly enough to be able to invest $50,000 with you. So that's who you want to go cultivate relationships with. It's really, really, really a relationship game. Those that take the time to develop those relationships are the ultimate winners.
Awesome. I always say this: relationships. You can't buy them. You can work it though. If you work it very well, it's really going to produce for you. And basically, that's what it comes to when it comes to syndication. I've had the experience to myself working those relationships, gathering the network to make sure that when the time comes for the offering, you bring them to the table because they're familiar with what exactly you're already doing. They know that, okay, that's what you're all about. And that's been the case for me also too. So I attest to that, when it comes to income producing property, as about right now, with the hikes in rates, with the inflation in place, when you look at the transactions you've done maybe in the last 12 months or maybe what's on the table right now, what specific income producing property would you say, okay, there seems to be more transaction here than this one?
Well, I do see a lot of the multifamily investors
Okay.
kind of pulling back and looking at other asset classes. Many of them seem to be shifting towards self-storage. Of course, that's going to cause a glut in the self-storage industry with too much competition. So those prices will go up. But there's certainly some underserved classes. Retail shopping centers, there's only one person I know that's actually teaching people how to buy retail shopping centers and how to get them tenanted. So try to go where other people don't go. Right.
Okay.
Warehouse space, industrial warehouse space. If you can figure out how to get those properties tenanted, how to find them, there's still some really reasonable cap rates in those markets. So you really just kind of have to step away from where the crowd is and think about what could I do out here, but beware of getting too crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because, for instance, I had somebody call me one day and said, I have a ski resort under contract. Well, have you ever raised money before? No. Have you ever raised money for a ski resort? No. Okay. You might want to wholesale that deal to somebody who owns and runs ski resorts, right? So, you've got to, don't chase after shiny objects. Don't, go looking for things that are maybe not attainable, and don't go after like really huge deals because they have a better cap rate, because the first time syndication clients usually can come up with $1 to $2 million on a raise. Much more than that is going to be a stretch for a first time deal. So don't be looking at $10 and $20 million deals, because those are the deals that make sense unless you have a management group that has done those size deals before.
Those type of deals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But be careful of be careful of capital raisers, right? There's people out there that call themselves capital raisers.
Okay.
According to the securities regulators, the only people that can earn commissions or transaction-based funding, like where they're getting paid based on the amount of money they've raised, those people have to have securities broker dealer licenses. That's a very, very difficult license to get. And it's a whole new business. It's not something that you can attain on your own. So, don't try to get paid based on the amount of money you're bringing to a deal. Just try to do deals. The best thing you can possibly do is bring some investors to a deal, but put them directly in the deal. Put yourself in management, bring your investors directly in the deal. If you're afraid that those other people are going to try to harvest your investors, then use a non-disclosure, non-circumvent agreement with them where they all agree not to do it before you introduce them to your investors.
Awesome. Wonderful information that you shared with us today. Awesome. I would normally do let people know more about what you have. If people want to reach you, if new syndicators, newbies in the business want to reach you, what should they do? How should they work with you? How would you love to be worked with?
We would love for them to visit our website. Go to syndicationattorneys.com. syndicationattorneys.com. If you'd like to schedule a call, there's a button almost on every page where you can schedule a consultation. You can schedule a free call with one of our staff, or if you want to do a paid call with me or another securities attorney, you can do that as well. So we would, be happy to talk to you. Also, if you'd like to download a copy of the book that's currently out there, you can do that. There's a free book tab. But I encourage you to go into our library, because there's over 60 different articles on all different aspects of syndication. Also, we have our own podcast called Raise Private Money Legally. So join our podcast or watch the episodes on our website. We have and read the frequently asked questions, because those are things that people ask me all the time. And every time I find myself writing a long answer, I post it. And those have accumulated over the years. So there's over 50 or 60 of those as well. But read the book, because it puts it all together. I am coming out with a new book called Raise Private Money Legally. So it's like a new and improved version of the first book. So there's a lot of new information that wasn't in the first book that's now going to be in this book. We're going to be publishing that towards the end of next month, after tax day. Let everybody get through taxes first. Okay. And then we'll be publishing
I
that
know
book.
you can't
But-
escape that, can you?
Yeah. And that book, we're actually going to be sending out physical copies of that. So if somebody would like a physical copy, they could text 844-796-3428. So that you're going to text to that number, 844-796-3428. Text the word syndicate, and we will, you'll get a form where you can fill out your contact information, your mailing address, and we will go ahead and send you that book. But we would love to have each of you as potential clients in the future. We have low cost ways for people to engage with us. We have weekly clients only masterminds where we talk about all kinds of stuff just like this. So love to have you all on those calls.
Yes, awesome. Just like she rightly said, her website is so rich with information, a lot of information, and she also has a private social media platform also too, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. You still have the page on Facebook. I know that, because I'm part of it also too. So you have also too on Instagram and on Twitter also too. If you want to connect with that on Twitter, that's twitter.com/KimLisaTaylor1. And on Instagram too, also to www.instagram.com/syndication_attorneys/ just make sure you connect with her. Like I said, she's a wealth of knowledge. She's brought so many syndications together over the years, and it's been on the foundation of being an expert also to not only saying or teaching people how to do it, also to her herself too. She's also participating as joint venture GPs, and she's participated in deals also to as if you rightly here say. Thank you, Kim, for joining me today. If you want to say one last thing, if you want any other thing you want to share with my audience before we sign off today.
Yeah, don't be afraid. You will gain confidence as you learn the rules. So, a lot of people who are just starting out have heard these things and they sound very overwhelming and very fearful, but they're not, because once you understand it's a step-by-step process. How do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite, right? Once you understand it's a step-by-step process, and you've got some guidance, you've got my book, you've got some good coaching, then you won't make missteps with other people's money, and it can become second nature to you, just like driving.
Awesome. You've heard it from Kim Lisa Taylor right there of Syndication Attorney. Wonderful time with her today. She's shared a lot with us. Practically, what it takes is to take the bold step to understand that, you just have to get the knowledge first, then you implement. That's what's called wisdom in the manifestations of syndication. And, like she rightly says, she's quite accessible. I can attest to it, with my experience with her. She's quite accessible. You want to call her, send her a text, or email her. She's right there for you. She's, trustworthy over the years. I can attest to that also too. So you have it right there, Kim Lisa Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us here on Commercial Property Club. We would love to have you some other time, going deeper into the world of syndication.
Happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Ola.
Super. Thank you.
Bye.
All righty.